If you're familiar with my channel, you'll know I'm not a big fan of What I've Learned, run by Joseph Everett, particularly his pro-meat content like this video. Well, he has a new one. Vegan diets don't work, and here's why. And within just the first 30 seconds, he does the thing that I so often criticize him for. Not having a bare bones understanding of a topic, yet making conclusions about that topic anyway. Specifically, he says this regarding Weston A. Price's discovery that teeth development isn't genetic.
How could crooked teeth be genetic when several parents with perfectly straight teeth had one child with very crooked teeth, but another child with straight teeth?
How can hair color be genetic when several parents with brown hair have one child with blonde hair and another child with brown hair? Genetics doesn't mean you acquire every single trait from your parents that makes you look or function exactly like your parents. For example, both my partner and I have one genetic variant linked to hereditary hemochromatosis. This is a genetic condition that causes you to absorb more iron. Does that mean our 3 children have one genetic variant as well? No. Each of our kids has about a 50% chance of carrying one copy of the mutated gene, like myself and my partner, a 25% chance of not having the mutation at all, and a 25% chance of having 2 copies of the mutation and being at risk for developing the disease. And unsurprisingly, crooked teeth are genetically influenced because of course they are. Does that mean environmental factors don't play a role? No. Talk about that more in a minute. The point is, whether or not a few siblings have similar looking teeth to their parents tells us nothing about genetic influence. And Weston A. Price is probably not the expert you want to reference.
He found a clear pattern. Those living on the traditional diet were in good health, had broad dental arches, straight teeth, and very few cavities. However, other groups in the same area who started eating these new modern foods developed crooked teeth and had 5 to more than 30 times the cavities of their counterparts despite sharing similar genetics.
Putting the quackery of the Weston Price Foundation aside, there might be some truth to this. Some current-day paleoanthropologists like Peter Unger study wear on fossilized human teeth, and they point out a correlation between diet and teeth health. Rate of cavities increased when we started eating more refined carbs, which makes sense. They provide food for cavity-causing bacteria. They're also soft, so they do a worse job of wearing away the food and working our jaws, which may lead to misalignment. So why wouldn't Joseph turn to these modern-day experts? I don't know, but it is interesting to note they don't tend to promote a paleo meat-heavy diet like Price did. Just to be clear, that doesn't mean Unger and others are right either. Orthodontist William Prophet, James Ackerman, and Tate Jackson question this softer foods view because humans started cooking and therefore eating softer foods well before the increase in misalignment. Also, there are plenty of examples where the diet changed, but the jaws and teeth did not. And even if Unger and others are right and we should be eating more harder to chew foods, well, healthy, harder to chew foods tend to be plants, right? They tend to be raw, fibrous plant food like carrots and apples and nuts and seeds, not animal products.
The more modern foods people ate, the less room in their stomach for a highly nutritious traditional diet. Across all the groups he studied, the foods they prized most were nutrient-dense animal foods.
Anthropologist Robert Curacini noticed something similar back in the 80s when he studied the Pima of Arizona, and he found a significant change between the younger and older generation. But unlike Price's findings, these people did not switch from a meat-heavy to a grain-heavy diet. In fact, the traditional diet was largely plants, and the modern diet was largely plants. The difference was the form. In the second case, they were now buying the food from a store, a more processed, softer form of the food. So if you're really sold on this genetics don't cause malocclusion viewpoint, it makes sense to eat more plants, not less, more crunchy, raw, fibrous plants. And obviously, limiting refined carbs, eating fibrous foods, and practicing good dental hygiene have nothing to do with veganism not working. We're 4 minutes into the video, and this is the only thing Joseph has said about veganism.
But if eating 0 animal foods improves health so much, why would a 2016 study find that 84% of vegans eventually quit their diet?
Followed by a bunch of clips of actors and YouTubers quitting veganism for health-related reasons. The obvious implication being that veganism doesn't improve health, it actually makes it worse, and that's why people quit. But is that what the study found? No. Of the 908 responses, 26% cited health as the primary reason, but 32% said they just didn't like vegan food. Many said social issues, inconvenience, cost, lack of motivation, and a full quarter said something else entirely. Many individuals gave multiple reasons for why they left the diet or what they would need to resume it, or both, indicating that there is no single factor at play. Anyway, back to teeth, I guess.
Dr. Price noted full-fat dairy as one of the traditional foods that these people considered valuable. So it's interesting to observe that the Dutch are competing with Montenegrins for the tallest people in the world title, and they happen to be second and third on the list for the most milk consumed per capita in the world.
It's also interesting to observe that taller Dutchmen tend to have more children, so they're more likely to pass on their tall genes. Although 2 tall parents can have a short child, so I guess height isn't genetic either. In all seriousness, it's likely both natural selection and environmental influence at play here. IGF-1 is very important for growth, and eating lots of dairy increases levels. Although, to be clear, taller doesn't mean healthier. The taller you are, the greater your risk for various cancers, possibly because of higher IGF-1 levels. This interesting study on people in their 90s found that the women with lower IGF-1 levels lived longer, and for both women and men with a history of cancer, lower IGF-1 predicted longer survival.
So why would it be hard to replace animal-derived vitamins with ones from plants? Well, I recently interviewed Giovanna Mendoza, who essentially made a career based around her vegan lifestyle. When she had health issues, she tried her best to solve them while staying on the diet, using all kinds of supplements and troubleshooting strategies, but she eventually had to prioritize her health and quit the diet after 6 years.
I don't want to be that vegan, but veganism isn't a diet. You can avoid animal products in lots of different ways. You can drink beer and eat popcorn. That's vegan. You can eat mostly raw fruit. That's vegan too. And yes, that is Giovanna. For most of her time vegan, Giovanna ate a very low protein, extremely deficient vegan diet. I know from experience that doing this for years takes years to undo. It took a long time for me to feel satiated on normal sized healthy meals like this because I was so used to stretching my stomach with 64-ounce smoothies. You can't just start adding in a bunch of supplements.
I would go anywhere with like a big bag of supplements.
And you're cured, everything's fine. I have no doubt she felt better adding meat back into her diet. The meat was providing nutrients she was getting so little of for so long. But meat is not the only way to get these nutrients. It's why I and others, including vegan dietitians, stress eating a healthy, balanced vegan diet with a variety of foods and an emphasis on protein. This ain't that. Now we get into the nutrients supposedly lacking in vegan diets that are causing our skulls to shrink and our teeth to become all crooked.
Take vitamin A, for example. You might think the average vegan has way more vitamin A because it comes from vegetables like carrots or sweet potatoes. But that's not vitamin A, that's beta carotene, and that has to be converted into vitamin A, and the conversion rate is very poor.
It's true that conversion of carotenoids to vitamin A is low, really low for some people, but that doesn't mean vegans don't get enough. We would need studies looking at vitamin A status in vegans, which Joseph does have, sort of.
And a 2021 study found vegan Finnish children to have insufficient vitamin A. And a 2020 German study found vegans to have a lower vitamin A level than omnivores.
First, why are we talking about children now? Second, I wonder why he chose these 2 studies specifically when a systematic review of nutritional status in vegans, including vitamin A, came out just last year. I wonder. It's interesting. In all seriousness, vitamin A is very important, and vegans should not just assume they're getting enough because they're eating lots of plants. Only certain plants are really good sources of beta carotene, and we should be eating those regularly to make sure we are meeting our needs, preferably with a bit of fat to improve absorption. But the evidence does not suggest that vegans are deficient in vitamin A. And just like with height, more vitamin A is not necessarily better. While you can eat all the carrots and sweet potato you like, the same cannot be said for preformed vitamin A, for retinol. You can get too much from animal foods alone. A shit ton can kill you, but even a much lower dose has been linked to fractures, and it might inhibit absorption of vitamin D from food. I would much rather meet my vitamin A needs from plants that also have fiber and phytochemicals and don't result in the death of sentient beings. Just a thought.
Some people can simply get enough vitamin D from the sun, but if you live at latitudes above 37 degrees, your skin barely makes any vitamin D from the sun, except for in summer. And a 2016 Finnish study found vegans' level of vitamin D to be 34% lower than omnivores.
Interesting wording. Lower does not mean deficient. Indeed, when we look at the actual study at the results, the median level for vegans was at the low end of normal. Now, I would bet Joseph subscribes to the view that we need more vitamin D, actually. But as Dr. Aaron Carroll and others have been saying for years, the evidence does not support this. This recent review looking at RCTs alone found that supplementing vitamin D provided no benefit for those whose levels were already within normal ranges. Finally, vitamin K2. I talked about this just recently in a video I did on supplements I don't take, so I'm just gonna plagiarize that. Many of the foods that are high in K2 are animal foods, certain animal foods like liver, egg yolk, and high-fat dairy. The compelling evidence for K2 specifically deals with heart health. You know what's not good for heart health? Eating a bunch of egg and cheese, foods high in saturated fat. Plus, the best K2 food, like by far, in terms of the amount it actually contains, is natto, which is vegan. So if you're really worried about K2 or lack of K2, it makes far more sense to take a supplement or eat like a tiny bit of natto. I'm not, so I don't. To be fair, Joseph does mention natto as a source of K2.
Most vegans know they need to supplement B12, which is very important for brain function. Yet, one study looking at B12 status in vegetarians and vegans found that 7% of vegetarians and 52% of vegans were not getting enough B12.
The implication being that it's hard to get enough B12 on a vegan diet regardless of supplementation. At first glance, that does seem to be what the study showed. B12 levels among the participants, the men, were low regardless of supplementation. But as the researchers note, this is likely because they weren't taking B12 regularly. The same goes for the second study he referenced. The authors conclude effective supplementation for vegans needs to be emphasized, not that B12 supplements don't work. Why would they say this? Because we know they do work. Study after study after study on various populations have shown that B12 supplements reliably raise B12 levels for those who are deficient. So when you see results like these, it's much more likely the participants just weren't supplementing properly. Particularly in light of studies like this one, where no difference in B12 status was observed between vegans and omnivores because of widespread supplementation. And just eating animal products doesn't ensure that you'll get enough B12. Not all are good sources, and vegetarians who don't supplement still have higher rates of B12 deficiency. And as we age, absorption worsens and B12 supplementation is often recommended for the elderly, regardless of diet.
Perhaps the B12 supplements don't work exactly like animal foods do.
Or perhaps reading through the studies he cites is just too much work for him. I mean, really, why should he make the effort? People find him convincing regardless.
Psychologist Kimberly Wilson says that there are over 40 case reports of babies being hospitalized for severe B12 deficiency after being breastfed by vegetarian or vegan mothers. In two specific cases, one where the mother was taking a prenatal supplement and another where the mother had no symptoms of B12 deficiency.
So in the first case, the mother was not supplementing. In the second case, she was, but with a prenatal. If that was her only source of B12, it might not have been enough. The less often you take B12, the more of it you have to take. And the result for vegan prenatal on Amazon does not supply enough B12 for pregnant and breastfeeding vegan women if that is their only source. Plus, it's methylcobalamin form, which might not be adequate. You may need even more. The Amazon Choice option is also methylcobalamin, and it's in an even lower dose. So again, B12 supplements work, as the authors of both case reports note, but super cool sending the message that they don't. Awesome work. And we're not even a third of the way through the video, so I'm going to stop there. I have watched the rest of it, and it's very, very interesting. Some interesting stuff. Lots of healthy, savage kind of stuff, right? Hunter-gatherers were so healthy. They were disease-free, I think is what he actually says. Oh, and including Cosmic Skeptic in his little anti-vegan clip show, which I'm sure Alex super appreciates.
I recognize that this kind of video can cause a lot of drama, bring a lot of attention, a lot of negative attention to the vegan movement, to animal advocacy. That's really something I'm trying to avoid.
But I think my favorite part is when he shills for super expensive salt packets. Seriously, it's 30 packets of mostly salt for $45. Makes athletic greens look pretty good. Anyway, there's an incorrect claim probably every minute in his video. So getting through it all, well, I mean, this video took hours to do, just the first not even third of the video. I'm not complaining. This is my job. I just want to let you guys know in case you want me to continue going through his video. It's gonna you asked for it, basically. So let me know, should I continue? I will, if that's what you guys want. Otherwise, I can move on to, I don't know, I could talk about the stupid deficient prenatal that popped up. Yes, it's that Ritual brand. You guys remember that? Are YouTubers still shilling for that stuff? Man, I used to get emails. Wait, maybe I did recently. I don't know. I've gotten so many emails asking me to promote that shit. Ritual, Native, Care Of. I don't get those anymore. Man, I could have made so much money and my dignity would be zero. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff from me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate it, and it helps out the channel. Like the video if you liked it. I hope my voice was not too bad. I'm still sick. Clearly, I feel fine, but my voice is still not great. Thank you so much to my patrons, patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. I do post 2 exclusive videos there a month for $5 plus patrons. I might have the March controversial video up by now. So one of the 2 exclusives is a controversial topic unrelated to veganism, and I should have March already up, or it will be up within the next day or so. And that's it for me, guys. Thanks again. New video soon.